Hi, I'm Kevin Tharp, and today I am sitting down with a professional SEO by the name of Brandt Tharp. He happens to be my son. And today we're going to talk about the way that AI has come into play with both the industry of SEO and the people who practice SEO. So first off, welcome, Brandt. Thank you for coming and speaking to us about this today. And you want to give me a little bit of information about who you work for, what you do?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Brandt Tharp. I work for a digital marketing agency called Market JD. Primarily, we do SEO and other digital marketing services for law firms, mostly small and medium-sized, uh, personal injury, divorce lawyers, criminal defense lawyers, things like that. And I am the director of SEO for the company.
So just a little bit of disclosure here. Uh, Years ago, Brandt got his start in SEO, working for me, doing the things that the hands-on stuff that needed to be done. And then he's built this into a career, and he's doing things now that I never had any idea about. They really didn't come into play until the last couple of years when AI became a significant factor in really everything digital. So that's what we want to focus on today. So let's start with how has the introduction of AI into this realm, how has it affected the industry of search? And then later on, we'll talk about how has it affected the people who are doing SEO. So for the first question, how has AI impacted SEO as an industry?
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the biggest impacts that SEO has had is that traditionally for SEO, we've used organic traffic as kind of a measure of how well we're doing, how well a site's doing. Um, and with the introduction of SEO, most searches now, whether that's on Google itself or on a platform like ChatGPT, don't actually result in clicks or traffic to a website. Um, the introduction of the AI overviews on Google may changed um, the amount of searches that were zero click searches, which is a search that does not result in actually clicking onto a website. That change moved it from somewhere in the 15% of searches, uh, 3 or 4 years ago to now being about 70 to 75%, and that might even keep increasing. Um, so a lot of what you're doing isn't necessarily, from an SEO perspective, isn't necessarily to drive traffic to your website directly anymore, but to improve your brand and um, also to become a source in those answers, especially for top of funnel searches. People who are interested in what you're selling or your services that aren't sure they're going to buy it yet. Something like for me, working in the legal industry, how do I pick a car accident attorney? That might be something that in the past I would have written a blog on and expected someone to click on that and go to the website and learn about the brand that I'm working with that way. Where now, when you search that in Google, it's going to give you the AI overview and it's going to source the answer from different websites across the web. Um,
So does that mean that there needs to be a greater emphasis on what we used to really call sort of reputation and the reputation of your brand and the people that have linked to you or
yeah, absolutely. And that's another thing is it's not necessarily just links anymore. AI tools, whatever form they come in, are tools of consensus. So it's not going to give you some original new thought. It's going to give you an answer that is common across trusted sources and also from human experiences. So it's going to look at what are experts in this field saying about it? What are, trusted platforms? What are the biggest brands? What are they saying? What do they think? And turn that into, what is the most likely answer, basically. And then it's also going to look at places that people are talking about these sources as well, the real actual human experience. So it's not just marketing, but places like Reddit, for example, but also niche industry sites.
So what I think I'm hearing is that your on-site SEO really is, as much as anything now, in addition to quality content, it's focused on your off-site SEO. So that trust that you're getting from others, what we used to call Google juice, or the people who are talking about you, the people who are linking to you, all that sort of thing. The on-site is now more important to focus on getting those other sources to view you as a trusted source rather than having the best content.
Yeah, I think for your on-site content, what really matters the most is that it is very cleanly organized, that it is direct, it answers people's questions, and that it's structured in a way that's easy to understand. You're not focusing too much on keywords or targeting a specific search like you want it to be, but actually creating something that's helpful for people to use.
Okay, so what does that look like when you're going through a website on a day-to-day trying to optimize it?
Yeah, I think some of the big things would be both for user experience and also for getting cited in AI. Having large blocks of continuous content is bad. You want to break them up as much as possible into small sections. AI loves bulleted lists. It loves tables. It loves clear headings and following a good heading structure. And then FAQ sections as well. And then taking those FAQ sections and adding schema to it. So making sure that you add FAQ schema to any content that you have that directly answers a question.
So by adding schema, what we're doing is we're going from having what's called unstructured data. So any content on your site is unstructured data. But if you add schema markup to that, you're telling the search engines from a data standpoint, you're turning it into structured data. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's accurate. It's for this example with FAQ schema, which we're talking about here, it's just basically a piece of code that says, hey, this is the question, and hey, this is the answer to it. And he takes each part of that and clearly states that this part is the question, this part is the answer, they go together. This is what's important on the page. And then when you have that structured data in there, when someone searches that question, it's already broken out in a form that both search engines and AI engines can just directly take that answer and use it from there.
Okay, so from a content's perspective, we're not changing what we're doing so much as changing the way that we're making it readable both by the consumer and by the search engines and the AI bots.
Yeah, I kind of think that AI is maybe making content better.
Okay.
Where you don't need to focus as much on saying things in a way that people are asking the questions. It's not that keywords don't matter, but matching keywords doesn't matter as much as it used to. It's more about matching topics and matching intent. So you don't have to, say the same phrase a certain amount of times in your content or anything like that, like you used to. You just have to make it clear that what you're talking about is what you're talking about, that this is the answer, and that you're a reliable source to get that answer from. So things like having an author on the page who, saying this content was written by this person, this is their experience, and then maybe linking out to where they can find other things about that person. So I work, with attorneys a lot. So we'll have a piece written by an attorney. it'll say the attorney's name at the bottom, give a little description, link to their bio page, and maybe awards that they won and things like that. So really tying your content into, hey, this is why it's accurate. This is the person who approved it or who wrote it, and this is, why you should trust them.
So that's interesting because when you look at the history of SEO, the author information has gone from, it was virtually meaningless once upon a time, and then the industry started putting a little bit of emphasis on it, and then we hit a point maybe 5 years ago that where they were like, well, maybe the author information isn't as important, and they sort of started backing off from it. But now it's going back to that is a more important component because that is part of the trust section, or the trust component of the search.
Absolutely, yeah. There was a period where it seemed like authority was most important for search, and with AI, I think it seems like that idea and concept of authority is really important to if it's ChatGPT or the Google AI overviews or whoever's making these tools and whatever training data they're using, they want to source people who they can back up with credentials. So tying your content to those credentials is one of the on-site ways to really show up in AI answers. But also off-site is becoming more important. It's always been important. Google functions through links. It always has. That's the basis of its algorithm. But now, since the public internet is the training data for ChatGPT or any sort of AI tool, just having your name mentioned in other places, brand mentions, is a big deal. And that can be on an authoritative site, something that's well respected. Like, for example, I work with lawyers, being mentioned in super lawyers, having a super lawyers profile. You can't not anyone can go and make one. You have to be nominated for it. That's a big deal. And then also, where people actually talk about whatever you're trying to sell or whatever you're trying to market matters too. What people's actual opinions are of your product.
So from a standpoint of a person who is developing content or working with content development, it sounds to me like you need to be producing more content, more good content, but not just content, but content that you can share out to the public square, places where people are gathering and learning about, teaching, sharing information about whatever the topic whatever the topic is that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So does that mean that it's more important to look at getting your content into a niche rather than just a sort of a broad sphere? Does that help, or does that even come into play into this?
Yeah, it definitely does. You want a lot of what you do on page hasn't changed that much. Good SEO is still good SEO, and it's going to, help you rank both in SERPs, and it's going to help get you cited in these AI tools. But what you do off page is kind of where the biggest changes are coming from. You're not just trying to build links to your site to generate authority. You're just trying to build it. Brand building is part of SEO now.
So always in the past, as SEO has evolved, the thing that you had the most control of, and still the thing you have the most control of, is the on-site, the content that you're actually creating. But it sounds like more than ever, it's important to link that on-site and off-site kind of stuff so that they start to blend more, and that goes to the authority, the trust, the recognition of your content as being produced by somebody that should be producing that kind of content.
Yeah.
Okay, so what does that look like as a person who is doing SEO. So let's transition to what does this look like on a day-to-day basis when you are doing SEO?
Yeah, definitely. So not only, are people's lives more influenced by AI, but the job itself is heavily influenced by AI and how we get work done. You know, the amount of content that you can produce thanks to AI is significantly higher. Things that I did when I was starting, writing title tags, meta descriptions, alt text for images, creating the framework for what's going to be on a page. A lot of that work can be done by AI once you develop a good prompt for it. So you can produce significantly more content than you used to. But if you don't, but you still need to make decisions about it. You still have to have a strategy, what you're going to do. You can't just tell it, hey, I'm selling electric bikes, make me content about electric bikes for my website. So a lot more of the work is now dedicated to the strategy side of things than the executional side of things. I worked at an agency at one point that we had a team of 15 writers. And when I started, by the time I left that job, we had 2. We were producing more content than we were before. So a lot of the kind of mid-level stuff, the mid-level positions don't exist as much anymore, where you had to know a little bit about SEO, but mostly you were kind of executing on a day-to-day basis. A lot of that is things that can be done with AI now. So that's pretty different. But it also means there's more opportunities. I can by myself do what an agency used to do 5 years ago. So there's a lot more opportunity for, once you have a little experience and some practice and know how to use these AI tools, what you as a skill set can offer is significantly higher than what it was in the past. But also how it's affected, what an agency does or what an SEO does who works for a company. A lot more of time is spent on relationship building. So things like finding experts in your industry, getting them to talk about you on their site, or in their YouTube videos, or finding sites that produce lists and of like top, whatever, and getting those people to include you on their lists. Building relationships is pretty significant because, yeah, like you said, what you have control over the most of is your site. So how can you leverage your site to help them so they will help you?
So does that mean that it's beneficial to be a person that is going out and say posting questions or answers to questions in places like Reddit or similar kinds of places, or is that the wrong direction?
I think that there is value in that, but there's ethical and non-ethical ways to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That is kind of where the issue comes in. I don't think that generally you want to go and create a bunch of fake Reddit accounts and start spamming your business name.
Yep.
But I do think there is value to being a participant in a community that is related to, what you do. I said, we'll go with electric bikes. I said that earlier. Say you're a business that is selling electric bikes. There's a benefit to you having a profile and participating in a forum that, people have questions, answering their questions, actually helping them. And then, when the opportunity comes to say, hey, we have pretty good stuff, check out our brand, that's okay too. But I don't think that it's beneficial to, spam comment your name and why you're awesome over and over again. I think if that happens a lot, and it's already sort of happening, that's already kind of happened. And as a result, ChatGPT started citing Reddit less than they used to. So as you know, people will always try and game the system, and as people game the system, the tools will adapt. That's what Google does. That's what AI is going to do as well. So
Almost every algorithm, beyond the very basic algorithms, all of the really significant algorithms in search engine history have really been a result of people gaming the system. So from the very beginning of when search engines became a thing, there's been this cat and mouse between the SEOs and the search engines. I guess now we would have to include the AI bots. And so when we start seeing what's built into the algorithms, people are always trying to figure out, well, exactly what we're doing. How do I show up in search? And there's white hat and there's black hat and there's gray hat ways of doing it. White hat really comes down to doing it the way that the search engines want you to do it in order to help them to provide good results to the end users. The black hat is, oh, here's a loophole that I can get through. And then gray hat is that area where you're just sort of somewhere in the middle. You're not going completely by the books, but you're also not spamming, you're not breaking it. But what you're saying suggests that we've got some new algorithms coming up that are going to look at the way that people are trying to go under the radar and get seen by AI in ways that really aren't going to be bringing the best content back to the fore, because ultimately that's what the search engines are there for. Their economic model is getting you to come and use their, whether it's their AI bot or their regular search, and coming back there consistently, because when you use them, that's how they make money. And if they're giving bad results, then you're less likely to come to that search engine, although there's not much variety in there. So I'm hearing a couple things. One of the things that you said is once you have a good AI prompt. So let's talk about that, because that's something that's completely new since I was actively doing this. How would people go about figuring out how to do that? How would somebody who's new to the industry that doesn't have all the skill set, how would they go about educating themselves or learning how to do this?
Yeah, I actually think the best answer to how to learn to prompt for AI to increase the amount of work you can do or get better answers, or is to ask AI itself. Ask the tool you're using. I can give you advice for structuring prompts, but it's really going to be industry dependent and goal dependent. And the best thing to do is to sit down and type into it, hey, I don't really know what I'm doing. How can I ask you the best questions? How do I structure it? And give it some context on what you're doing. But the more information you provide it, the more context you provide it, the better answers it'll give. You can also ask it to, if you're writing content, tell it to write in certain tones of voice is impactful, and also telling it, to act as though it's filling a role. So if you're trying to come up with a content strategy, you can say things like act as a content strategist with 15 years of experience in this specific industry, and that will kind of change how the answers it gives you. And then you can give it advice for what tone of voice to do for writing as well. Always edit your AI content. Don't just take what it says for granted. Make sure that what it's saying is accurate, that it's not, because it hallucinates and things like that. But if you really want to learn how to prompt AI to, increase the amount of work that you can do, the best thing to do is to just play around with it, to ask it questions, ChatGPT knows what ChatGPT wants better than I do. So,
and there is no substitute for experience. So just like everything else, the best way to learn to do this is to go out and do it, which sometimes makes it hard to get that first job. But would it be helpful if they say volunteered to help a community organization that doesn't have a budget to have an SEO to go in and help them, that kind of thing? Is that the right direction, or should they take some kind of, I mean, give me an idea about how to self-educate other than asking the,
Yeah, I mean, I think the best way to self-educate is take an interest that you have and make a website about it. Something that you don't mind writing a little bit about, that, you know, your goal with this first website isn't to, make $1 million or whatever. It's to learn the tools, to learn, what works, what doesn't. It's always changing too. So, I could tell you to do one thing now and it's going to be different later. But to actually go out there and go through every step by yourself of, this is how you register a domain. This is how you, choose a template on WordPress, or, whatever. This is how, just go through the process by yourself. And, it's not going to be pretty at first. It'll get better over time, but I think that's kind of the best experience. Even if you just want to make it, I know a lot of people who got into this industry by making a website about how they do SEO, and you go to a job interview or something like that, and you have a website that says, hey, this is, my website about how I do SEO. um,
so we've got a cat visitor here walking in, but that's okay because we're kind of right at that. That's our cue to sort of wrap this up. The interesting thing about your answer there is that as much as SEO has changed since I started learning and doing it in 2012, as much as it's changed, that answer is still the same.
Mm-hmm.
The best way to learn about how to do this is to do it with something you're interested in.
Yep.
So I want to thank you very much, Brandt, for coming in and helping my students to understand, kind of AI, where AI has gone with this. And the more things change, the more things stay the same. So the best thing to do is to spend time doing it. You don't get to the top of the mountain without climbing it. So if you want to get the jobs that are offered to the people at the top of the mountain, you got to start climbing that mountain right now. That's all we've got for today. I'm Kevin Tharp, and wishing you all the best, and we will talk to you later. Bye-bye.